57. We will start at 11.
Okay. The PPT you can see?
Yeah. Okay. May I kindly request Mr. Saugata Chatterjee, my co-moderator, to turn on your video and mic?
I think probably you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you, but there is some kind of background noise.
So my laptop has some problem, and video I
Okay. Yeah.
Probably net connection. There is some problem with net connection.
Okay, fine. So for the time being, Saugata, you can keep your mic on. Whenever it will be required, that I will just ask you to make it. Yeah, okay. To make it off. Yeah. May I also kindly request my co-moderator, Mr. Swapnil Goel, to make your audio and video on?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Hi. Morning. Yeah, hi.
Hello, sir. Somu, sir.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so it is now 10:59. We are just 1 minute away from the start of this one. Okay, Professor Mukherjee, we are starting. So, okay. Good morning to all of you, and wishing all of you a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi. So, let us first welcome our speaker, Professor Soumya Mukherjee, over here, and we are having this privilege that to have him over here as our one of the speakers in this particular webinar series organized by IEEE MTT Student Branch Chapter, IIT BHU Varanasi. And so I'm telling you that before I will formally introduce him later. So may I first request my co-moderator, Mr. Swapnil Goel, to say a few words. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, BHU, for organizing this webinar. MTTS Section Student Branch Chapter, and Soumya Mukherjee, sir, for accepting our request for presenting in this webinar. And today is we are having celebration of Ganesh Chaturthi. So in Maharashtra, Ganesh Chaturthi is celebrated in it's the biggest celebration in Maharashtra. So it will continue for next. And we are having this Aarti and all these things at around 11 only. The timing is clashed, and we are like preparing that celebrations also. And at our home, we have decoration of like a Bahubali kind of set we have prepared, which is having height of around 5 feet. So it's like a big decoration we are having today. And parallelly, apart from this Ganesh festival celebration of 10 days, in New Region also we have launched an initiative to help out the faculty to make the learning more interactive. So in that, we are also offering the free version of the software and the free version of portals. So that will be having advanced capabilities of cloud computing and all those things. And I hope that these 10 days will be like awesome for all of us. Thank you everyone for like presenting in the webinar. And I wish all the best for this next 10 days. Let's have a good celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Swapnil, for your nice comment. May I now request Saugata to say a few words?
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Soumya Bhattacharya, and thank you so much, Professor Soumya Mukherjee, because he is giving a wonderful talk. I have already listened one talk on a webinar, which is given in the MNIT. It's excellent. That's what the excellent talk. And really, I learned so many things about the SIW. And also, I think Epidas, you have given a talk on the SIW based antenna design. So at that time, I present there. That's also an excellent talk. And as I already Swapnil told that now there is a Ganesh Chaturthi is beginning. So Maharashtra is the biggest celebrations. Even if my house I also celebrate it. So these 10 days, it's like some few minutes. But anyway, this time, this pandemic situations, the whole thing is something different. Like the Puja Aarti is a little bit of less comparatively to other days. But anyway, I think without wasting any time, we can simply, sir, you can continue.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Shogato. Thank you, Swapnil. And so it is my privilege to introduce our speaker. And before introducing him formally, let me tell you that it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Mukherjee, who in India is the very first person to carry out his thesis on substrate integrated waveguide or SIW technology. And so I can say that he is the best person to explain all these technical details about this one. So let me now formally introduce Professor Mukherjee. So Soumabha Mukherjee was born in Kolkata, West Bengal, India in May 1987. He received the BTech degree in Electronics and Communication Engineering from the West Bengal University of Technology in 2009. The ME degree in Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering from Bengal Engineering and Science University, Shibpur, Besus in 2011, with specialization in Microwave and Communication Engineering, and the PhD degree from the Department of Electrical Engineering, IIT Kanpur, in 2016. Since 2016, he has been an assistant professor with the Electrical Engineering Department, IIT Jodhpur, Jodhpur, India. His current research interests include substrate integrated coaxial line antennas and circuits, substrate integrated waveguide antennas, multi-frequency and broadband antennas, and chipless RFID. Dr. Mukherjee was a recipient of the European Microwave Student Grant in UMC 2013 and UMC 2014. He also received the International Travel Grant from the Department of Science and Technology, DST, Government of India. He is also a recipient of the Young Scientist Award, EPIDASC 2019 RC Asia Pacific Radio Science Conference, instituted by the International Union of Radio Science. He is also a reviewer of potential journals like IEEE Transactions on Antennas and Propagation, the IEEE Antenna Wireless Propagation Letters, IEEE Access, IET Microwaves Antennas and Propagation, IET Electronics Letters, and IET Journal of Engineering UK. So without wasting any further time, let me hand over the stage to Dr. Mukherjee. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sumok Bhattacharya, and thank you all others, Mr. Swapnil Gaul and Shogato. So it's a very, I can feel the warmth you gave to me for the introduction, so I am very thankful for that. So without going any further delay, let me start my presentation. Is my voice clear?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So the title of the talk is Substrate Integrated Circuits, Microwave and Millimeter Wave Applications. So basically here I'll try to introduce two technologies. One is Substrate Integrated Waveguide, SIW, and other technology is Substrate Integrated Coaxial Line. So let me first start with where I am from right now. So I am in the Electrical Engineering Department of IIT Jodhpur, and this is the iconic view of the administrative building of the IIT Jodhpur. If you search IIT Jodhpur, this is the building you will see in most of the pictures actually. So basically we are here in the Rajasthan. So people only think in the Rajasthan is only a desert. It's not like that. So Jodhpur is just at the border of the desert. So there are trees, but not as much as you will see in the other part of the country. So, but our campus is going greener and greener day by day. And if you want to see the beautiful picture of Jodhpur, so this is the picture. So this is the famous Mehrangarh Fort, and Jodhpur is called Blue City. The reason you can see here, all the buildings, traditional buildings, are blue color. So this is from the old tradition they maintain. And if we talk about the our institute, it was established in 2008, and we have currently 14,000 students, 160 faculty members, 12 departments, and 7 interdisciplinary research platforms. And this is some of the pictures of our campus. So that's what I was saying, that the greenery is there and it is day by day increasing. And this is the famous clock tower we have. And for our department, I can say that we have currently 2 MTech programs. One is Sensors and IoT, another is Cyber Physical Systems, and also some MTech and PhD dual degree program in both SIoT and CPS, as well as in Communication and Signal Processing Engineering. And of course, the PhD in traditional as well as these interdisciplinary areas. So this is all about the introduction of our institute as well as our department. So now I'll go to the outline of our talk. So I'll very briefly introduce first the microwave and millimeter wave applications. What is the scenario or context on which I'll be discussing our technology. Then I'll first introduce the substrate integrated waveguide technology and how to design it, how to design SIW cavity backed antenna, and then I'll introduce substrate integrated coaxial line technology and its applications, circuits and antennas, and then I'll conclude. So let me start from the this summarized picture of the frequency domain. So you can see that here the picture is showing the wavelength. With the increase of the frequency, it is getting decreased, and this is the comparison of at different frequencies, how much is the wavelength. So whenever you are talking about kilohertz range, then your wavelength is too high, like a multi-storied building. Then when you comes to somewhat higher frequency, then it will be along our length. And then when it comes to microwave, it is in centimeter, so around the dimension of the butterfly. And then you move on and it will go to the atomic level also. So we are mainly focusing on microwave and the millimeter wave. So around this range we can talk, and most of our circuits will be in those dimensions of the butterfly like things. So talking about the microwave communication, so basically typically microwave communication, terrestrial communication and point-to-point communications are the most popular one. But when you go to the higher frequency range, like in the millimeter wave, then there is absorption in the atmosphere. So that limits the practical communication distance to be achievable. And then there comes the challenges and how to mitigate that and how we can design our antennas and the circuits or the systems to have such kind of communication links. So that is the motivation right now all the microwave engineers are having to design their solutions. So when we talk about microwave frequency range, the basic transmission line, there are of course multiple transmission lines available, but the most popular one, if I say, they are waveguide if you are talking about very high power and high Q applications, and another most popular one in terms of commercial application is microstrip based circuits. So I will show you 2 examples. The first example is a waveguide based application. So this is actually used in World War II. So this I always tell to my students also, sir, that the technological advancement typically happens when you have some critical situation. I don't need to tell that right now everybody is facing that. We are in a critical situation, and of us are being questioned that what you can do, what you can solve to solve this COVID problem. So you can understand when the World War happened, there was a big demand of technology. And then these microwave engineers came into the picture. So they are the one who invented those radars, waveguides. All the basic research of waveguide happened at that time, and that actually developed a huge military applications for microwave. Before that, it was not that much popular. The way it became popular after World War. So World War, I always believe, is a key factor for spreading of microwave technology. So then it was for military applications, but later on people found out that, well, we can also use it for commercial application. And if I talk about nowadays, we have this type of circuits which is based on microstrip technology. Of course, this made possible after the invention of the planar technologies. So people first discussed strip line, then coplanar waveguide, and then came to microstrip. And nowadays the microstrip is the most popular one. Now, one thing I want to keep your attention is that if you just compare this with this, you see both are the transmitter, means both are transmit receive circuits, but here there are so many waveguide based components and heavy bulky equipment and all those things you can only fit in your fighter plane. Whereas if you think about this, which is a satellite dish receiver, this is you can pick in your hand and very lightweight. So we have come from here to here, and the reason we could do it, major reason you can see, is the many of the semiconductor devices which are being used here. So boom of the semiconductor technology actually made this possible. So nowadays all the active circuits components are very small surface mount device and all those technologies, and you can just connect it with the microstrip and make it in your hand. When well, with that, what is current scenario is that now this technology is also being saturated and people are trying to get more and more benefits. So then comes the next challenge. What's next? So I'll come to that just after 1 or 2 slides. So let me, before that, just show a brief overview of the these different frequency bands and their applications. So typically nowadays, the most of the commercial applications you will find in this range: L band, S band, and C band. Slowly there are some applications in X and Ku band also. Very less application in K and Ka band, and slowly we are moving towards the next range, which is UVE band. So I'll not go into the detail of that. So like if you talk about 5G millimeter wave, there are many applications in 77 gigahertz. There are automotive radar, there are industrial radar. All those applications are coming. So we are pushing in those range, and there are many applications in those frequency range. So I'll just show some of them. First one is point-to-point communication. I think you all have seen this type of equipment in some of your rooftops. Even in your institute, if you see, you will find it. But that there are some this setup is there always. So these are used for point-to-point communication, which is a major application of microwave application in commercial range. Then there are Wi-Fi wireless networks. So these definitely you all use. You are probably right now using. There are microwave radio relay networks between different towers. So you will see this type of antennas in different towers, which are being used for communication between towers, relay. And then this one is the automotive radar application. So this is, of course, you will not be able to see it on your own eyes in where in the car it is, but it is there. It actually helps you to avoid collision. That's why it is called collision avoidance system. Then I think this also you have seen these door openers. So these door openers is nothing but a Doppler radar. It will be fitted in the door. Whenever you will come, so they will detect the Doppler shift, and according to that, they will only open the door. So this is very useful application of microwave frequency. And microwave oven, I think the most common application comes into people's mind when we talk about microwave. There are many more applications, but due to keep my presentation brief, I am not included it. Like there are applications in satellite terrestrial communication, and then there are this like some of the people are from GMRT, so there are this radio astronomy is there, and also in some warfare, weapons, missiles, all those things. So they are also we have many microwave application, but today I'll focus on the commercial part. So if I talk about the commercial application, the most common application is mobile communication, where we are using right now the microwave frequency range. So I'll go into the next slide about the commercial frequency, the commercial application of microwave frequency. And in terms of mobile communication, there are different generations we are generally talking about. So this table is too much information. I'll just focus on some of the information. So if you see about the speed with the different generation, the speed is actually increasing. So these are some things you should note whenever you are thinking about mobile communication technology. Then at the 1G, there was no internet. At 2G, we had very narrowband internet, very slow internet. 3G, somewhat broadband, and now 4G is ultra broadband, and now we can see even the live cricket match in our mobile phone, which was not possible when 1G came or 2G came, right? And so the bandwidth is increasing, and now we are talking about 5G. Now 5G has different scenario. The most common one is I have shown here. So there is enhanced mobile broadband. What it means is this. So at 3G it has kbps range, then 4G has somewhat more than that, and then now at 5G we are talking about multi-gigabit per second communication system. Okay, so that is for enhanced mobile broadband, but 5G also talks about ultra reliable low latency. What is the application? I will show in the next slide. Massive machine to machine communication. So these are different case of 5G communication where the technological solution will be much different. So whenever people talk about 5G, it's not only about your mobile phone. It's a different paradigm shift. There are different applications where your circuits and technological solutions will be needed for application specific. So let me show some pictorial view of the scenarios. So this is one of my favorite picture when I discuss about the 5G technology. If you see it clearly, there are multiple applications shown. Let me start with hospital. So in the hospital, they are talking about e-health, where this ambulance and all will be connected through the mobile network. So what is, even if your patient is in the ambulance, the data should be going to the doctor, and doctor will be using AR and VR. So they are talking about high-speed internet where they can live feed they can get from the patient. If you talk about industry, inside the industry there will be machine-to-machine communication. Means ultimate level of automation. All the machines will be talking to each other and then doing automatically all the work. And for that, definitely you will need a next level of the technological revolution. Then only it will be happening. And of course, the bandwidth will be required more. Then if you talk about the car, the self-driving cars we are talking about. So the cars will be talking to each other as well as talking to the street lights and all those things. And then there are commercial applications like AR and VR for work as well as gaming industry. We are talking about unprecedented speed mobile connection in the moving aeroplane, and like that many applications. So these are one of the this will give you a pictorial view of what exactly 5G is promising. Now comes if I talk about the technological background, what exactly is required to achieve this. So if you know, for 5G there are two frequency bands people are talking about. One is sub-6 GHz and another is millimeter wave. The reason millimeter wave is coming into the picture because of the unlicensed spectrum we have. As I have already told that the spectrum mostly we are using in ALS and C-band. So the higher frequency spectrum are typically free. There are not much standards. So people can build their own standard according to their need. They can choose the bandwidth, which is not possible here. You all have heard of the 4G spectrum auction, and 5G spectrum auction is also going to happen probably very soon. So there you have to buy the spectrum, and you have to be very much limited within that spectrum only. But if you talk about millimeter wave, there is no such thing as of now. It will happen in the future. So for now, there is a more potential. So people are thinking about doing it in millimeter wave, how to do it. But when we talk about millimeter wave, there are multiple challenges. One of the challenge I have already talked about, that is high absorption in the atmosphere. The other challenge is on the circuit implementation level. So let me show you that. Achha, before going to that, I just always show this slide. This is one of my personal experience. So this is this picture I took when I went to Japan in 2018 APMC, and this was displayed in the shopping mall of the Tokyo. So basically they had a plan of demonstrating 5G in the 2020 Olympic, which is now postponed. So they had made both sub-6 GHz as well as 28 GHz antenna system, and they were demonstrating many applications. So the applications we are talking about, ultra reliable low latency application, this is the application. So if you see, what they are showing is that the tractor is working in the mining field, and the engineers is sitting inside the AC room and just seeing the live video. This is the live video they are seeing. Now, this has to be very live. What I mean is that it should not happen that the tractor is moving now and I am seeing it after 1 minute. It has to be very millisecond gap only. So that is ultra reliable, low latency communication. You need very high speed internet for that. And then only it will happen, okay, the tractor needs to be stopped, the engineer will press the switch and it should stop. So all this communication should go very fast. So this is the requirement of one of the requirement of the 5G for the industrial application, that you need to build a system which can handle such scenario. Other scenario is this one where you are thinking about 8K video. Okay, so the high quality video, even for that you will need very high bandwidth. So there will be challenges in terms of antennas, there will be challenges in terms of the front end circuits and background all other semiconductor devices. So everything has to be reinvented with the keeping in mind these applications, keeping in mind in this requirement. So Japan has demonstrated something, but unfortunately they couldn't demonstrate it publicly. That was the plan, that everybody will use 5G during the 2020 Olympic. But maybe next year we are going to see those things. And in India also people are trying. So let's hope that we will see those applications very soon in our lifetime. Okay, so now let me go into the challenges. So suppose we are talking about microwave frequency range. We have very established solution right now. Suppose you are talking about 2.4 gigahertz transceiver. So you know that we can design an antenna. This is a PIFA antenna, and then the receiver part is just a in the market available semiconductor devices you can put, and you can connect it with the microstrip line, and then complete circuit you can make it in a very small form factor which you can fit in your handheld device. But when we talk about millimeter wave frequency, the typical transceiver looks like this. So you will have a 2-horn antenna for transmit and receive, and then you will have multiple waveguide solutions in which there will be some semiconductor device. Now if you think about this in your mobile phone, not possible. It's not going to work. So you need solutions which can do that. So people then thought, okay, one of the challenges is that how we will interface with the semiconductor device with the waveguide. Then people thought, okay, why not we make the waveguide part whatever it is required, and whenever it comes to the semiconductor device, we can make a planar circuit and just make it. So this is a Pasternak, there is a company, Pasternak, I have taken from there. So this is a picture of that. So just interface with the Pasternak the waveguide, and the semiconductor part is the circuit. But here is some catch. The catch is waveguide to microstrip transition, and this is very, very crucial. If I show you the typical waveguide to microstrip transition, so typically these dimensions of this microstrip line which is going inside the waveguide, which is working as a probe actually. So basically this is working as a probe antenna. The waveguide field will be exciting the microstrip line, and then microstrip line will continue. And these dimensions are very crucial. And whenever we are going for millimeter wave technology, for example, if I talk about this transition, if I go into the millimeter wave technology, these all steps will be in the range of some few millimeters. And you make a small mistake in 1 millimeter, your performance will degrade a lot. And I'm showing here the practical view of this device, and you can see that how much small it is. So you have to fabricate that much small with that much sensitive dimension, then only it will work. So what is the consequence? Consequence is your manufacturing cost is high. You also have very high volume because you are using waveguide, and complicated transitions. The design is not easy, manufacturing cost is high. So all in all, these are taken from this paper. So all in all, this is not very fruitful solution if I talk about the commercial application. The commercial application needs bulk production, very easy to manufacture, and then only the business will grow. This is not a promising solution. So this is the context when people were started thinking, what's next, what we can do so that this problem can be solved. So this is where, on this context, the first solution came into the picture at 1994. This was a Japanese patent. Name was waveguide lines. So what this patent told is that you can make waveguide-like circuits in planar circuit and planar substrate with the use of PTH technology. So this is the first mention of the integrated waveguide inside a planar substrate. Okay, and then people started later on people started designing this type of waveguide based circuits in planar substrate, and people termed it as a laminated waveguide. Then also post-wall waveguide came into the picture, which is parallel plate type of transmission they were doing, and ultimately they are shielding it at the outside. And then they made antenna for the collision avoidance radar, 77 gigahertz, also indoor wireless LAN application. Okay, so these are the very first examples when people demonstrated that inside substrate we can make waveguide like technology, and then we can this can be a very good solution to the problem I discussed, that you need you will not need to make transition, and you can make everything in planar, which is very easily fit into your handheld device. So this is the technology background. So substrate integrated waveguide is actually bridging the gap between microstrip technology. So microstrip technology, why we cannot use it in the millimeter wave? The reason is that there will be high radiation loss, there will be surface wave, there will be other challenges like the high dielectric loss. So those things will be taken care of if we think about waveguide technology, but at the same time waveguide is bulky. So SIW comes into the picture as a bridge between these two. So it is planar as well as it has all the advantages of the both microstrip and the waveguide. So if I summarize it, so this is the SIW picture. So you have this substrate which has top and bottom copper cladding whenever you are buying it from the market, and then you are putting rows of metallic vias, PTH vias, plated through hole vias, which is acting as the side one. So you have top, you have bottom, and you have side one, which is making a waveguide structure inside your dielectric substrate. And advantages, of course, it is low loss. There will be no radiation loss as such because it is a self-shielded structure. And then you will have high Q transmission line. You have high power handling capability compared to microstrip line, and of course easy fabrication process. So these are the very most common transitions used in SIW, which is very easy to fabricate. As you can see, there is no step, 3D structure, just planar and very easily integratable with the other circuits. So that's how the SIW technology became very popular solution for this type of problem. So when I talk about substrate integrated circuits, SIW is one of them. There are some other types of waveguide structures are also possible. As you know, the waveguide is very robust and established technology. So there are multiple variations of technologies available inside the waveguide family, and the same family can be also integrated into substrate integrated format. So this is the family of the substrate integrated circuits family. First one is SIW. Then there is slab waveguide. So for slab waveguide, basic structure was this. So people tried to do this with the AR hole vias, which will actually implement the dielectric and the AR interface. So that's how they wanted to build it in the planar substrate. Then there is this substrate integrated non-radiating dielectric waveguide, again with the AR hole vias. Then there are substrate integrated image dielectric guide, there are inset dielectric guide, and integrated insular dielectric guide. But when it came to fabrication, making these AR hole vias were not very easy when you are also doing PTH vias and the AR hole vias. So that's why among them, SIW became most popular one. Another reason why SIW became most popular one is this transition. So transition from SIW to other technologies is very simple, which is not same story for other technologies of the SiC family. So that's why SIW is the most popular, and the rest of the technologies were not that much used in practical application. Okay, so this is the background of the SIW technology. So let me now go into the design part, how actually we will design SIW. So if we start with the design, so there are multiple rows of vias here, and if you see the current distribution, you can see for TE0N, TEMN, and TMMN modes, there will be a current going in this direction along the side wall, where you have via and then you have a gap. So basically, so this is the via, this is the gap, black one is the gap here. So then basically the current going in this sidewall cannot flow since there is a discontinuity. So for these modes actually cannot sustain in SIW technology, whereas its parent waveguide technology can sustain all of the modes. SIW can only support TEM0 modes because of this reason, because your sidewall is discretized with via and gap, via and gap. So therefore it is not possible. And mostly we generally work on the dominant mode of the SIW, which is TE10 mode, and this is the field distribution and the surface current distribution. So you can see clearly that this via one is maintaining the field inside the guide. There is no leakage as such going outside the via one, and the surface current distribution is exactly same as it is for the conventional waveguide. When we talk about the design, there is an interesting results people saw. So this is the comparison of the rectangular waveguide and the SIW. So when it comes about the cutoff frequency, it is almost following the similar nature, but the cutoff frequency variation with the dimension is interesting. So typically in a waveguide, you will see that if you just increase the waveguide, width of the waveguide, your cutoff frequency will decrease. But now here is another two parameter. One is diameter of the via and the pitch of the via, and if you change that, then also your cutoff frequency will vary. So here it is cutoff frequency is not only function of the width of the waveguide, but also the diameter and pitch. So therefore people actually used curve fitting process to find out some empirical formula and came into this formula, which is showing the effective width is actually function of the physical width as well as diameter and pitch of the SIW. So later on people proposed also this formula. So these two formulas are very popularly used. Both of them can be used without much error. You will get the result. Any of them can be used. Okay. And when we talk about the complete design, there are some more factors come into the picture. First one is the physically realizability. So of course your diameter pitch has to be greater than the diameter of the via, and then otherwise it is not physically realizable. So this region is not possible. Then any periodic structure will have band gap phenomenon. So we don't want any stop band coming into our operating frequency. So that you have to maintain. And then for making your field inside the sidewall, you need to maintain this condition to reduce the radiation loss. And if you make multiple vias, then the substrate can break. So there is a limit of that. So that is the avoiding over perforation. So this is the region where you can put your pitch and diameter of the via so that your SIW will work with satisfactory performance. So this is the design part of the SIW. Okay. So with that, here I am just showing an example of the SIW technology, and the dimensions are given for RT285880. And this is the field distribution and performance of the waveguide. So as you can see, after the cutoff frequency, there is propagation of the wave inside the line, and that you can see here also in the field. Okay. Next is the SIW cavity. So with the same extension, what you can do is that you can make 4 side walls of the via wall, and then you will have a SIW resonator, which you can use for your filter as well as your antenna, which I will show in next slides. Okay, so this is the design example, and this is I am just showing here one of the design example that if you use these dimensions, these are the frequencies you will get, and these frequencies denote the multiple modes which can occur in this waveguide SIW cavity. So the modes are here. So basically the first one is the dominant mode, which is the TE110 mode, and then the next 2 mode is the TE210 and 120 mode. The reason is very obvious that there is 2 half wavelength division, so that's why 210, and this is just opposite one. Now these modes are very crucial because we are going to use these modes for our antennas. How we can use it, so that I will show in the next of the slides. So this is the first example I am showing, which was first we proposed this antenna actually. So basically how we can use a slot antenna by putting it in the SIW cavity in a particular location. So basically, if you think about the slot antenna, that is bidirectional. But if you put it in a cavity, then the back radiation is actually getting reflected from the cavity, and you will get an unidirectional radiation with high gain. So this cavity back slot antenna is very useful whenever you are placing it in some application. The back radiation typically detunes your antenna. But if you make it a cavity back antenna, then this problem is very much gone. So now the question is how we can excite this slot antenna by this cavity. So for that, you actually can use the TE120 mode. So basically what is happening, you have to place your antenna such that the both sides are 180-degree opposite phase of the field. So that will actually excite the slot antenna, and then it will start radiating. So basically this is the field distribution, TE120 field distribution, and if you put the slot antenna along the middle where the null is there, so then this condition will be applied, that the 180-degree opposite phase field distribution will happen, and that will excite the antenna, and then you will get the radiation. Okay, and this is the surface current distribution, and it is showing that the placement of the slot is actually disturbing the current, and for which we are getting the radiation. And here in the paper we have also discussed that how you can get better impedance matching. So you can actually shift this feed line, and as well as you can vary the inset of the feed line, and accordingly in the Smith chart you can see that multiple combinations of inset and feed you can use to get your impedance matching. So ultimately we fixed on some of the combination, and this is the fabricated result we got, which is matching very well with the simulated one. It was designed in the X-band, and this is the fabricated picture. So as you can see, very robust and compact antenna, but at the same time it's not bulky, so you can use it directly in your handheld device, and a very high gain around 5 dB. Typically the slot antenna gain are around 3 dB, and this is the radiation pattern. So you can see that it is not bidirectional, there is a front to back ratio. So this is also written in this table, and this is both E-plane and H-plane radiation pattern you are seeing. Okay, so this is the basic idea of SIW cavity fed slot antenna, how you can excite. Now, since SIW cavity is very high Q, your antenna will have very narrow bandwidth. So that you can see here, 4.2% bandwidth only. The question is, can you increase it? So we studied a lot, and we found out, yes, we can, if we use some beautiful concept. So that I am going to show in the next slide. So this is the example of the antenna where we used a broadband performance by using SIW cavity. So how we did that? We placed a bow tie slot, and what it did. So first, if I start, if you excite this cavity, you will have TE110 mode and TE120 mode in your cavity, which is the conventional modes. But the moment you place the bow tie slot, what is happening is that some unconventional modes are starting to appear. The conventional modes are gone. So that is very clear here in the real and imaginary Gerin plot. You see that this one is the TE110 mode, this is the 120 mode. The moment you place the slot, these two modes are gone, and some new modes are coming into the picture, which is not actually conventional mode. So what is it? So the solution we got is that this is actually hybrid mode. This is combination of multiple modes occurring because we are loading it with a very unconventional type of slot antenna. This very high loading or very high perturbation is actually mixing these two modes and making it a hybrid mode. So these two hybrid modes, what is the advantage is that these two hybrid modes are very closely frequency spacing is there. So what happens is that then you will have a broad bandwidth because you have very closely spaced modes, which has the property that one side of field is there, other side field is very small, so it can excite the antenna, and then you will have radiation in both the modes. So when two closely spaced modes are radiating, they can give you wideband performance. So that's what happened here, and we got 1 gigahertz bandwidth, which is around 10% bandwidth, and throughout the bandwidth you have almost flat gain in radiation pattern. So the antenna is very small, but still it can give 1 gigahertz bandwidth with a very high gain, and that's why it is very, very popular technology you can think of for your application. So this is the radiation pattern plot. As I have already told, this will be unidirectional radiation pattern because of the cavity backing in behind the slot antenna. So we have also studied a lot extensively that how these hybrid modes can be used. We have seen that it can be used for multi-band application also, but I'm not showing it there here just for the brevity. I'll just show one of the specific example which is very close to me actually, this work. So that's why I wanted to present it here. So this is a motivation came into our mind that can we use hybrid mode for increasing the gain? So from that motivation we started this design. So what we found out is that if you make very high length to width ratio, then your field distribution changes. And this is how typically the field distribution looks like. Now if you plot it in your MATLAB, your conventional sinusoidal field is like this blue one, and what you are getting is this red one. So definitely it is not a sinusoidal field distribution. So then it came into our mind, what is it? What is this field distribution? So conventional mode looks like this. M is 1, 2, 3, whatever the mode is there. But when we are talking about this particular mode, actually what is happening, your high length to width ratio will do what? Many modes will come into the close proximity. T110, then 210, then 310, 510. All these modes will come into very close proximity, and then they can interact with each other and make a hybrid mode combination. So this is what is actually happening here, and we have showed it with the mathematical calculation that yes, that is happening. So here there is an infinite series of multiple modes. So this is for T110, then 310, then 510, then 710, 910, and so on. So we have shown up to 910. You can extend the series, and then you can see that whenever we are plotting these fields, it's matching with the actual field. So basically this field distribution is combination of multiple modes. So basically the hybrid mode field distribution we can create by high length to width ratio. Now if we use it for our antenna, what will happen? So we just placed an antenna, and we calculated the field distribution. So basically if you know the exciting field, you can calculate the magnetic current through the slot, and if you know the magnetic current, then you can also calculate the far field. So that's what we did, and then we found out is that yes, by doing this we can reduce the beam width of the H-plane radiation pattern. And if you all know that whenever you are reducing the beam width, you can have a high gain, and that's what happened. So basically earlier we were achieving around 5 dB gain, and for this particular case we got around 8 dB or 9 dB gain throughout the band. And so the ultimate antenna looks like this. So this is a little bit different from the rectangular slot. The reason is that we wanted to make out of band performance to be very smooth. So this extra mode which was coming because of the very high length to width ratio, we tried to depress it, and that's why we made changes in the slot dimension, and therefore the final design is like this, where you have very good out of band performance as well as very high gain by using SIW hybrid mode. So this is the measured radiation pattern, and as you can see, E plane is very broad beam width, but H plane is very small beam width. Okay, so that's how you can actually utilize SIW modes for getting high gain. So this is where I will stop the SIW part, and I will now go into the SICL technology, substrate integrated coaxial line technology. Okay, so what is it? So basically it is a planar version of the coaxial line. Coaxial line, you all are using coaxial connectors and also using for measurement purpose. But think about it, if we want to use, see, the coaxial technology is very robust, and you can use it in millimeter wave frequency as well. But if you think about your PDA, the handle PDA you are using, and you try to make coaxial line based connection, it will be very not easy to handle task. But what if we can do it in a planar circuit? Then it can be very useful application. So basically the coaxial line looks like this, which was invented in 1880 by Oliver Heaviside, and then at some point in 2006 these three people proposed that okay, we can make the planar version of the coaxial line. So basically coaxial line has inner conductor, then dielectric, and then outer conductor. So the outer conductor we can make by the same SiW type technology, that top and bottom conductor and then side wall, and there will be a middle conductor here. So that will make your coaxial environment, rectangular coaxial line environment in a planar substrate. And what is the advantage? So I'll come into that. The first advantage you can see here directly is that whenever you will simulate it, it will work from DC to the frequency, upper frequency, what you want to work. So the upper frequency limit is that when its higher order modes come into the picture, before that you have to stop. So basically the higher order mode is TE10 mode, which is when this structure is working as a waveguide. So that is where you have to stop, because we don't want multiple modes come into the picture. So therefore that is the range of the modes where you can work, and that is typically very wide band, which is unlikely than the SiW counterpart, which is very small band. You know that if you are designing it for X band, it is 8 to 12 gigahertz only, not beyond that. But that's not true for SiCL technology. And this is the typical field distribution, the comparison of actual coaxial line and SiCL technology. So this is very similar field distribution you can get, although it's not exactly same. Of course, that's not possible. Whenever you are making it planar, there will be some deviation, but at some great extent you can actually get it. Okay, so why SiCL? The first one is wideband unimodal application, which is not possible in SiW. Then next one is non-dispersive. You can use very wide range pulse. You can send through this, which is not possible in waveguide. Your pulse will be distorted, but not here. This is not dispersive. This is completely pure TEM based line, whereas the SiW is TE based line. So that is another. And the shielding is common. Both SiW is shielded and SiCL is shielded. Also, it is planar, better Q factor, ease of fabrication. So you can have the TEM based planar millimeter wave solution with this technology, and that's why it is very good to explore, interesting to explore, I will say. And to the best of my knowledge, in India, probably right now we are the only group who are exploring this, and we have done some work, and that's what I wanted to present here. So the first work we did is transition, because if we are thinking about making a system with it, then we will need transition from this technology to the microstrip technology, so that we can use the semiconductor devices and put it there. So that's the first agenda we had, and we made a very good transition. So this is the typical structure and how it is working. So for that, I will show this picture that these are the reference planes. So at the reference plane A which is a quasi TEM based line, you have the field distribution like this. Then if you see at the BB dash, you have this type of structure, which is somewhat restricting this quasi TEM based field distribution into a TEM like field distribution. And this TEM like field distribution, slowly, gradually, by doing this type of slot structure, you can slowly make it completely TEM based, so that it can flow through the coaxial line. So this is step by step was done. So first, this introduction of this actually restricted the boundary condition, and therefore the field distribution changed. Then this slot gap was reduced, so the boundary condition again changed, so the field distribution changed, and ultimately we came into the coaxial behavior, or coaxial boundary condition. And that's how this transition works. And we also checked the robustness of the design with the different substrate, and we found that from DC to 40 gigahertz, it can work perfectly within -20 dB bandwidth, which is very good if you think about for application. Any application, you go for millimeter wave, you go for microwave, it can work very easily. Okay, and this is the typical field distribution. So you are seeing that the coaxial like nature is there, and this is the fabricated prototype which we made, and this is the substrate we used, and this is the measurement result, which is very closely matching with the simulation. Okay, and we got almost -20 dB bandwidth from DC to 40 gigahertz with this transition. Okay, so next one is the crossover. The crossover is very important technology right now. People are talking about it. Is much more useful for beamforming network. So basically, the idea is that you will have 4 ports. So port 1 to port 3, I should be able to cross this second line without any disturbance, without any coupling to the second line. I should be able to do. So this is the crossover technology actually main idea. So how we made it? So this is the layer wise distribution. So basically this line is going from here, and then there is a via which is overlapping here part, and then again going to the second line and then coming to the port 3. Whereas for port 2, it is coming from here, again there is bottom, there is a via, and up to this part, and then again going here and going to port 4. So that's how the crossover is happening. So people can think only that with the via we can do that, but there is some catch. So that I will show here. The catch is the changing in the height will change your impedance as well. We want the crossover to be in the 50 ohm range. So there is a limitation in terms of the height as well as in terms of the width, and what is the impedance you can get. So this graph is showing that actually. So basically you cannot make any combination of the height and width. You have to maintain that for 50 ohm impedance, as well as since we are using via, if you increase the height of the via, there will be insertion loss will be increasing. So that also we don't want. So there is a trade-off, what you can do and what you cannot do to design this type of crossover circuit. But the advantage I will show why what is the advantage of this crossover. So basically this is the idea. So whenever we are giving in port 1, it is going to port 4, and whenever we are into port 2, it is going to port 3 without other line is not affected. But the choice of the height will actually be trade-off. One is the insertion loss will decrease, whereas if you increase the height, your isolation will increase. So what you can do, that you have to check, and then only we have proposed a design which can show very good isolation and with very small insertion loss. So this is the fabricated prototype, and this is the up to 20 gigahertz wide band crossover. This is the first time we could do from DC to 40 gigahertz, DC to 20 gigahertz. You could propose a crossover which can work for this much wide band. There are wide crossovers already, but not this much wide band. And then the insertion loss is also very low, and isolation is below minus 20 dB throughout the band. Okay, and so the major advantage is wide band. Then also we have other things like low group delay throughout the band and the path difference. Many of the crossover designs will have the path difference from port 1 to port 2 and port 3 to port 4 is not same. But for our case, it is exactly same throughout the bandwidth. So that is the advantage of this particular design, which we could do with the SICL technology. The next one is the SICL based filter. Typically this topology is not new. Many people have explored it, but what is much interesting here is that we explored the coaxial nature of this particular technology, where we didn't, this is actually stepped impedance resonator based filter, but here what we did is that we explored the perturbation of the field by choosing the outer conductor variation, which actually proves that this coaxial nature is existing here very much in this particular technology. So we didn't change the inner conductor. The inner conductor is intact, just only change the outer conductor, and that actually helped to give the desired perturbation, and we could achieve the filter performance. So this is the modes actually typically, the even and odd mode, first mode. These two modes we used for the filter, and also these two are the higher order modes just shown for your reference, and this is what it is showing. So when the outer conductor is R2 is actually the radius of the outer conductor, which is varying. So whenever your outer conductor is going inside, so basically these two degenerate modes are resonant frequencies are shifting. So they are not same. Whenever R2 is around 1.5, there are difference, and then actually we can explore it to have transmission zeros, and then we can get the filter response. And another advantage of doing SICL technology is that your higher order mode will come at very high frequency gap. So there is almost, you see, from 14 to 26 there is a gap. So your out of band performance automatically will increase, which is not possible in your SIW case, because your SIW higher order modes will come much closer. So that is another advantage of using SICL technology. And this is the fabricated picture, and this is the filter response we got. You see, in the both lower order out of band and higher order out of band, you have very good response in terms of the filter. And yeah, so this is the typical specification we have. and then this also was published, I think, in Literature Letters. And the last one is one example of the antenna. So this is the I think our group actually proposed this particular way to have coaxial line based resonator. Okay, so this is a cavity which is coaxial cavity, and then there we tried to do whether we can use it for antenna purpose. So we made one antenna with that at millimeter wave at 28 gigahertz for 5G application. So if you, and this is the mode distribution. So if you see, it's not exactly same as the SIW case. There is the coaxial line nature type, TEM type mode distribution is there. And interesting thing is that there are both SIW nature and SICL nature is present. So if you see this figure, if you just take a reference, the first mode is coaxial TEM type mode, and the fourth mode is just higher order of that. But whereas the middle two modes are actually one is sinusoidal distribution, one is co-sinusoidal distribution along the dB dash. So these two even odd modes are present, which is not possible in SIW structure. How we can utilize these modes in different purpose, that is up to us. So here we have used only the dominant mode, but we proposed the structure and we have analyzed it and showed what are the different modes are possible, and we wish to utilize them for our future in whatever way we can. So what we did here is that we put a slot antenna here, which actually restricted the field to be inside the resonator in an evenly mode way. So what happened is that one side of the slot antenna had the uneven magnitude of the fields, and that actually excited the slot, and then we could get a good radiation, high gain radiation. Okay, and this is the typical response, and we got a very high front to back ratio, high gain radiation pattern at 28 gigahertz with this technology. So that's all. I want to conclude here that both this SIW and SICL technology has good potential for millimeter wave as well as for microwave application. One interesting point I would like to also mention, that people started using or thinking about SIW from millimeter wave perspective, but when people found out that yes, we can do waveguide in a planar substrate, then people also started, okay, maybe in the L, S, and C band also we can utilize them for some TE based application, which was not possible earlier. So people are using it for microwave application as well as for millimeter wave application as per their choice. And many interesting solutions are coming into the picture, which was not possible earlier before the invention of this technology. So I hope you enjoyed all. So that's all from my side. This is my group. Most of the work, whatever I have presented here by these two senior PhD students. Other students are also working. They have recently joined. These are the project stuff I have, and this is my contact details. If you have any query, you are always welcome. You can contact me anytime if you want. And thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mukherjee, for the wonderful talk. So let me just tell to first all the participants that I have just shared the feedback link in the chat form. So please fill it up before you leave. And secondly, that now, Professor Mukherjee, if you don't mind, so can I take those questions? Some questions
Yes.
have been asked by those.
Yes.
Yeah. The very first question, I have found that in India, where we can fabricate such small SIW circuits.
Yeah, so actually, if you think about fabrication, this is just plated through hole technology is very robust. If you go into any PCB industry, they will make this. They are actually making it for the PCB purpose. You just have to just discuss with them that no, we want it not for PCB, for this RF substrates. You have to make this PTH. They will make it. So it's not a very big deal. PTH technology is robust and always available. Only thing is that this addition of this knowledge is how you can utilize that PTH for your waveguide purpose. So you only have to give the design. So many PCB service provider can give that.
Okay. Second question is, sir, can you please suggest me about some Indian vendors who can provide us 1.8 or 0.6 mm via rivets for SIW?
Via reverse?
Via rivets. I think that that one has to make the proper design of the via, and then he has to make PTH technology, right? Yeah.
Yes.
The next question I have come out, that what is the significance of having different Z11 peaks at different modes?
See, the Z11 or ZIN for one port antenna is a one port, so then we are actually making it Z11 and ZIN is same. So these are actually showing the different modes which are occurring in that particular resonator. Okay, so different peaks you are getting. That means at those frequencies you have the resonator is working. At other frequencies the resonator is not working. So in this you will come into the picture if you think about in the perspective of series resonator and parallel resonator concept. If you just make a transmission line model, you can get it that whether I am expecting very high impedance or very low impedance. So whenever you will have resonance, then you will have.
Yeah. So the next question is, in a receiver, is it only the waveguide that is connecting the LNA and the antenna, or something else is there in the antenna LNA interface?
Are you is it regarding the picture I showed, or is it a general question? General question is depends on your designer. What is exactly you are doing?
Yeah.
But for there, actually, I think they in that particular case, that is 60 GHz transceiver. So most of the transceiver part was designed in the waveguide. Only when the semiconductor device was used, they have made an interface and then connected the semiconductor device, because placing semiconductor device in a waveguide is a very big challenge. It's not easy.
The next question that one has asked, that I have a simple question on my mind: why SIW designers are choosing circular type of wire, not square, triangle, hexagon, etc.? From design point of view, triangle, square, hexagon type of wire are also easier as comparison to circular. So any comment from you?
No, from fabrication point of view, if you think actually it is by drilling. If you see any drilling machine, you will see always circular drilling machine. You will not see square or hexagonal. That is not actually very mechanical point of view. If you see, it is not very easy to implement. So circular is more easy to implement.
Yeah. And then it has been asked that what is the SIW length can be of any wavelength?
Length means the length of the transmission line, I hope.
Yeah, maybe.
Yes, it can be up to you how much multiple wavelength you want to design it.
Yeah. Then it has been asked that in SIW cavity slot antenna, how to decide the slot size?
Slot size is, this is from the basic antenna theory, it has to be half wavelength, always.
Okay. The next question is the reason behind using discrete wall wires only due to manufacturing or fabricating issues?
Of course. If you can, if there are some solutions where people propose that we can deposit in continuous wall. Yes, that is also there, but that is manufacturing point of view is not cost friendly. It is costly. So if you can do that, you can.
Yeah. The next question is how we can recognize different modes exciting inside the SIW cavity by using Z11 peak.
No. You have to see the field distribution. If you are only trying to get it from simulation, you can also try measuring it and then trying to find out that Q factor, and from the Q factor you can guess whether it is the first or second or third, which one it is.
Okay. The next question is there any typical range to which SIW and SICL can handle the power?
Power handling for SICL, I don't think that there is any study so far. For SIW, there is some studies. I think I don't remember the exact figure. Maybe some 10 kilowatt, but I am not sure. It may be. You have to check in the literature. I don't remember it exactly. Maybe 10 kilowatt average power. I am not sure.
One student has asked that I am getting the Z11 peak before the cutoff frequency in simulation. What can be the probable reason?
If you are working with resonator, there is no concept of cutoff frequency. Cutoff frequency only is on, you are using it as a waveguide, as a transmission line. If you are using it as a resonator, it is the dominant mode and then the other modes. So I think you need to reframe the question. Probably you are confusing with the waveguide cutoff and then resonant frequency.
Yeah. The next question is SIW can support only TE, whereas SICL supports whereas SICL supports TEM. How the TEM is supported by SICL? Can you please explain once again?
Okay, so this is from the coaxial theory, coaxial line theory. So in the coaxial line, you will have a middle conductor, you will have an outer conductor. So if you see the boundary condition, it can support the TEM mode, which is not true for the waveguide. Waveguide has only unique conductor configuration, and the boundary condition, if you just place it, it cannot support the TEM mode. That is the very well-known conventional theory. The same theory applies for the substrate integrated counterpart. It has no extra addition in the theory part as such.
And another one has asked that I am getting Z11 peak before fundamental mode in SIW cavity. What is the probable reason?
I think something is wrong in your simulation. It's not possible.
Yeah. The next question is that, sir, for your large length to width ratio, SIW cavity, how different modes are occurring close to each other without any specific techniques?
That is also, if you just go into the design frequency of the SIW cavity for different modes, you just plot in the MATLAB and see. Whenever your length to width ratio is very high, these resonant frequencies is bound to come very close to each other. That is from the formula you will get it. You just plot it and see. That is very basic theory. Nothing special.
The next question is, sir, what are the probability of integration of metamaterials in reduction of size with SIW?
There are some works in metamaterials. I am not very expert in the metamaterials, but I think the SIW is T-based technology, and most of the metamaterial works are done in TM-based technology. So I think that will be a challenge, but there are some works, so you can explore that. But I am not much expert in the metamaterial domain, so I cannot comment.
Okay. The next question is your comment on propagation modes and boundary conditions in waveguide.
I didn't get it. Means what comment is expected?
I don't know. It's just, someone has asked that. Can you, the person who has asked this question, can you please retype this question over here? Okay. In the meanwhile, let me go to the next one. Sir, for using southwest connector, whether ground CPW to SIW transition is essential or microstrip line to SIW is also okay?
Can you repeat the ground?
For using southwest connector, whether grounded CPW to SIW transition is essential or microstrip line to SIW is also okay?
Both can be used. Both can be used.
Okay. So if you have any other questions, please. Yeah. So one has been asked that different efficient techniques to reduce the size of antenna with FR4. I don't know what she's asking for. Okay, someone, yeah, different efficient technique to reduce the size of antenna with okay. In the meanwhile, let me just go like this way. In general, what are the propagation modes and boundary conditions in the waveguide?
Dominant mode is TE10. Then, and depending on your width to height ratio, your next propagation mode will come into the picture. So there are, this is from the basic theory that which cutoff frequency comes after which, that depends on your dimensions. So that's how in waveguide it will work.
Yeah, so one has now asked that what are the different efficient techniques to reduce the size of the antenna with FR4 substrate?
I think that is electrically small antennas is a different topic is there. So
yeah,
not in this presentation anything is related to that.
Yeah,
means you can explore.
Yeah. So I think that So another question, we have found the vias on SIW are working as sidewall of the waveguide. Please explain how it is happening.
So see, these vias are actually plated through vias. So it will have a not perfect electric conductor, but you can think about as a conductor via. So there are multiple conductor vias. So whenever your wave is going, if you maintain the gap such that the wave going between the two vias is very small, it will actually reflect your wave into the because of the conducting nature, it will actually reflect it. So that's how it is actually shielding the fields inside your SIW. The leakage is not happening. Suppose you have made a field inside the substrate. So it will try to propagate in all directions. But now you have multiple conductors which are very closely spaced. So there will be some leakage, very small leakage between the two vias. But if you maintain the gap such a way that this leakage is almost negligible, then most of the fields will be confined inside your waveguide, and that's how it is being done.
Okay. So one has asked that if possible, can we use this technique in low frequency below 500 megahertz?
I don't see any problem, but in below 500 megahertz, I think waveguide technology works well, and we are not thinking about 500 megahertz technology to be used in a handheld device very soon. So then this problem doesn't occur, that we need to make it very small and all those things. So it can be very bulky also. So whenever it becomes very bulky, we can use waveguide, and of course waveguide has much higher advantage than the SIW. Only reason we are using SIW is we are trying to make it in our planar circuits. So if we don't have that restriction, I think waveguide is better.
And another question is that is SICL wavelength dependent?
It's a TM based technology, so if you are thinking about any resonator based circuits, of course it will be operating wavelength. You have to think about that, the dimension, the electrical length. You have to always think about any design, any microwave millimeter frequency. You have to always think about electrical length, not the physical length.
Another one is asking that because coaxial horn antenna work in TE11 mode, shall we use in as open-ended antenna?
Can you repeat the question?
That because coaxial horn antenna works in TE11 mode, shall we use in as open-ended antenna?
I'm still not clear with the question.
Okay, so let me ask just request the person to repeat the question once again. And the other question, let me come over here. Please suggest some research challenges in SIW. I think.
Maybe you can, the presentation I gave, that the 5G challenge, that so many applications, you think about solutions, that will be a good challenge.
Yeah. The next question is, what are the possibility of wearable SIW antenna in low frequency for IoT?
People are working on that. It's a good problem.
Yeah, okay. So so if you have any further question that you may ask in the meanwhile, so let us just wait for 2 more minutes in this case. And if you have any further questions, please you may type over here. Yeah. So what has been asked over here, the SICL, can SICL work in an open antenna since it is a planar structure?
I am still not clear what is being referred as open antenna.
Okay, I think it has been asked by Shogar. Shogar, can you please unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, Professor. So I just ask you one thing, like coaxial antenna, coaxial horn antenna, because I think you know about the coaxial horn, coaxial horn antenna. Yeah. So coaxial horn antenna has a great advantage that you can accommodate 2 bands.
So that's the thing I also told in the SICL technology, that it has the advantage, wideband unimodal performance. So yes, if you are thinking about accommodating multiple bands type of system, SICL is a technology you can use. Definitely you can use. Yeah, I hope I have answered. I don't know.
Yeah. The next question also I have received, that what kind of materials are used for wires?
Oh, the conventional technology is copper plating.
Okay. So these are the questions. I think that So I don't think that we are if you have any further questions, please post it over here. We can ask it to Professor Mukherjee. Okay, I think that we have come up with all those ones. So what I will just request you that before you leave, that I am sharing the feedback link once again, that please fill it up before you leave it over here. And another one is asking that was a study done by using the wires an angle in the wall plane instead of the vertical? Just he was asking that. I am just curious.
Angle in the wall plane. Can Can you repeat?
Actually, what he's asking that instead of the vertical, can you make the vias some kind of angular? Or was a study done by using the vias on an angle in the wall plane instead of the vertical one?
Well, I think fabrication point of view, that is not very easy. And the second thing is that what will be the motivation? Why I should think about such complicated structure?
Right, right. And another one is how to improve the core to cross pole difference in SIW antenna.
Well, it's a shielded structure, so the cross-polar component coming from the feed structure is actually taken care of. So it should actually give you much better cross-pole performance. And as such as antenna is concerned, that theory is well known. That if you have to design your antenna such that it should not radiate the cross-polar component, then only your cross-pole component will be removed.
Yeah. Okay. Another one has been asked that is there any formula to calculate the height of via in SIW?
In SIW, typically, if you are talking about conventional SIW, the vias are from the top to bottom wall. So there is no partial height via. We generally don't talk. And
he's asking any height of the via. So
I'm saying that inside the substrate, multiple heights via generally we don't go, because fabrication point of view that is very difficult to maintain. So typically the height of the substrate, whatever is available in the commercially available, that will be the height of the via, because we generally do whatever is the height of the substrate, same will be the height of the via, typically. But you can definitely think about this partial height via, which is actually called ridge waveguide. So there is ridge substrate indicated waveguide also, but that fabrication is different. You have to go for multi-layer fabrication, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, so we have come across all those questions. And another one I have got that what kind of substrates are suitable for SIW?
So for SIW, it is the dielectric loss will be little bit higher because it is a dielectric field waveguide. So you have to choose a substrate which will have low loss tangent so that the loss is limited.
I have a question from my side. I am curious. Yes. So can we just think of fabricating SIW structure in some magnetic materials?
Maybe.
I don't know. I am just coming. Just after seeing this question, it comes into my mind.
Oh, so there are designs where people have inserted ferrite material inside the waveguide and tried to make circulator. But fully magnetic material and then making SIW, I have not seen. So I don't know.
Okay.
Some exotic performance we can expect probably.
Yeah.
I think loss property will be increased. I think probably the loss will increase because ferrite has a high dielectric.
Yeah, means that design what I am referring was it was used for circulator purpose. I don't remember what was the insertion loss. Of course, if it is purely properly magnetic material, probably the loss will increase. Yes, but I think if people are going to use that, the motivation will be something different. So some exotic performance, something like that. So maybe.
Professor, I have just one question.
Yes.
Like your last application, SIW application, this insertion loss and this wide crossover effect, this low propagation, something I missed that actually. So actually, I just have to ask you one thing: that insertion loss you have, but what are the effect of the mutual coupling? Like if both the signal, like your 1 and 2 port, let's say, but what are the mutual coupling between them?
Yeah, so that's why I showed the graph of isolation. So isolation, as far as let me
20, I think 20 degrees.
20 degrees. So that is the isolation. And I also showed the design challenges. Means there is a trade-off. You can increase the isolation, but you will have degradation in the insertion loss. So you have to make a trade-off. Which one is better?
Yes, which one you got?
Okay, so I think that that we have received sufficient questions, and it was our pleasure that Professor Mukherjee had answered all of them, and he had presented a very nice talk over here, and it has been related to SIW technology as well as SICL and substrate integrated circuits. And again, I'm telling that he's the first person in India to work in to submit his thesis on this SIW as well as SIC techniques in India. Okay, so we are fortunate to have him amongst us on this in this occasion. So let me thank all those these audience to be here, and may I just request Shobhata to have some concluding remarks.
Thank you, Professor Soma Bhattacharya, and thank you so much, Professor Soma Mukherjee, and thank you so much. That is a wonderful topic, and I think most of the people, some of my Bardhaman friends and some of my old colleagues also, they are also joined. Like Hanumant is also joined. He is there, and it's a very interacting session. Actually, previously I have already attended one webinar, and also I have that's M93. But it's a really interesting what are the challenges. Like this time we understand what are the challenges. Like what are the challenges or what are the aspects. We can think that okay, we can use it in our low frequency any application or high frequency or radio astronomy or any other application, satellite communications, whatever it has. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you very much. This is the second time I missed to visit the campus. First time was at CRS, for some personal reason I couldn't, and now due to COVID. But I hope in future I will be able to.
We will have you soon once, and we hope that these things will come up very shortly.
Yeah.
And may I also request Swapnil to have some concluding remark? Swapnil?
I think probably Swapnil is there. Or
Swapnil is there. I can see.
Hi, sir.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah.
So, sir, most of the time people just ask me about the questions about the fabrication part. So I think if because of that part only people researchers are not going to publish their work. So they need measurement work and all those things. So if you can guide on that part, then people can take the measurement things and they can publish that.
Yeah, so that's what I think I have also answered once again before that. Basically, you have to explore the PTH technology, which is very well-known technology in PCB domain, but people have not explored that in the microwave domain. So basically, the major challenge is that how to do PTH in your microwave substrate, and many vendors actually will do it if you want it, and then you can explore by designing some basic structure and just give them the substrate, microwave substrates, the typical substrate what you use, and then you just tell them that we need PTH along this dimension, and just test it. So after 1 or 2 cycles, you will get an idea that how it can be done.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So PTH technology is there. Means it is very very well known technology. No need to worry about much.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mukherjee, for spending your Saturday with us. Your first of it.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So thank you very much let me thank all the attendees also to be present over here. And once it will be processed, I think the link will be shared. The recorded video will be shared with all of you. And I request all of you to kindly subscribe our YouTube channel also. So what I just tell you that I will just request you the mail which I have sent to all of you to join the session. You can find that our Facebook page of our MTT Society. I request you to like that page, and also I request you to kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel to tune to more updates. Okay. So thank you very much for having it over here, and thank you, Dr. Mukherjee, for your
wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.